Welcome back to this video series in which we will program your own social media site. So in this tutorial we'll close the front end and setting up the back end and our API. So first of all we go into the backend directory and we init this package.json file. So to do that we are typing npm init-y, and now you can see there is this package.json. In order that we can use these thing like import something from something, this is you can just use this if you define the type in this package.json. So you can say type module, and now we can use the import type thing, and then we need to install some packages. So for the backend we are using Express, then we need nodemon so it auto refreshes when we save a file, and then we need Express, then we need .env. It's like for environmental variables, for example our Mongo database key and stuff like that, so nobody else can read it in the repo. Then we also need the nodemon, and we need core, the cores package. I will explain that one later. After they are installed, we go into the backend directory and create a source directory. And inside of the source directory, we create the index.js file. That's the entry point in this API. So we can test that by saying console log API test. Then we can save that. And in order that it will run the index.js, we need to change one script, or we add one. We can call it dev, and there you say nodemon. So this is the package which we installed. So we can refresh, so it auto refreshes the server run, and then we are saying source/index.js because the index.js is in the source directory. Save that. Now we can type in npm run dev. The dev is because we call the dev over there. And now you can see there's the API.test log which we programmed. So now that we know we can start the whole application, we start by creating a route. So we do this by creating the routes directory. So you could specify every route in the index.js, but it's a better practice, especially with like larger applications like this one, where we are using a lot of different endpoints, to create a routes folder and create the routes in this directory and then import them in the index.js. So the code is cleaner and more structured. Then inside of this we are creating auth.route.js, and you can see we created a new file, and in the console the nodemon package automatically restarted the program and it logged it again. So we first need to import Express from this. Then we are creating a router, auth router from express.router. And then we can create a test route .get. So this .get is the API method which is used by the endpoint. And if we are trying to get this endpoint with a different API thing, like for example, if you are testing it with post, it won't work. So you have to get this with get and not with post or put or delete. So then we need to define the endpoint, for example, test/test. Then we need to add a action, which is, or a function or something, which is called when the API endpoint is called. So you could pass any function in there like you want, and for test purposes we are creating an arrow function, and this function needs two parameters, einmal request and einmal the response. And now we can say response.send, and we can just send something like test route. Then we also have to export the router. So we can say export default auth router. And when we save it, it automatically reruns it. Then to use this route, we have to change the index.js. So first of all, we also need express in there. From express. Then we need to initialize it by calling the express function. And then we can say app.use. So the .use function is normally used for middleware, which we also create in this app and use it. And besides middleware, you can also add routers, which are created in different files, and it will use the routes from those routers. So first of all, we are giving the router a URL. So we can say yes, for every route in this router, we will use API/auth/auth. And then we are calling the router, auth router, which you also have to import. And then after that, we have to say app.listen. And so this function basically says, if this file is run, Express will listen on a specific port for any request for an API endpoint. So first we can define the port. In this project I will use the 5001. You could use any port, but you have to be sure that in the front end, later when we will call the routes, you use the same port. Otherwise it won't work. And then we are using an arrow function, and then we can say console.log server is running on port 5001. Save that, and there's an error. Cannot find module. Yes. .js. And now it's working. And you can see there's the thing. Now to test this, if the API endpoint is working, I'm using Postman. You can use any other like HTTP thing. There are a lot of different tools out there. I will link this one in the description. And to see, we have this get. So we have to change it to get. Then we have the 5001 API/auth/test. Then if we send it, you can see the response in the body. So this test route, which we are sending back. And also the status is at 200 OK. So that's the default status if the request worked. So now that we see that the router and the route which we defined is working, we want to add some modularity to it. So we want to, instead of the 5001, we want to save this in a variable, because for hackers and stuff, it's easier to get access to your API if they know the port number. So we want to create a environmental variable so that they can't see that. So first of all, we are creating a lib directory, and inside of this one we will create a file called env.js. And every environmental variable is saved in a file called .env. So it's very important that there's nothing in front of the dot and it's just .env. You can't name it anything else or it won't work. So in there we can specify the variable port 5001. And then inside of the env.js we are using the .env package which we installed earlier, .env, and then we say .env.config, and then we can export multiple variables, and then we say process.env. So inside of this we can add our port variable, and normally if you leave this out, you have to you can access this, but access these variables by saying import.meta or something like that. With this .env, you can access these variables in this just in the same file with these process.env dot variable. And now because we are exporting those, we can go over to the index.js and we can import them /lib/env.js. And then we can access this variable by calling it just with port. So you can see port, save it, and you can see it also functions. And then for this string, we also wanted to make it dynamic, so we're adding a $sign in front and backticks the beginning at the end, and then not $sign in front of it. And then inside of this we can access the content of a variable by saying $ and then curly brackets. But so this just works with backticks. So if you're just using double quotes or something like that, it won't work. And then inside of there we can say port. If we save this, you can see it also says server is running on port 5001, just like we said it there. And if we say 5002 and we save this and we rerun it, you can see 5002. And so now we can check it again with Postman if it is still working. Send, and you can see there's also a 200 status and the thing. So if you like this video, leave a sub, a like or a comment, and see you in the next one.